What's up, fellas? This week we got Contender Series Week 2. George Hardwick versus Abdul Kareem Al Sawade. And there's a whole bunch of pretty close and exciting fights. And I'm here to teach you how to make some money on it. So, get us started off with the first fight of the night. You got Cameron Smotherman going against Charalampos Gregorio. I honestly think this is a pretty close fight. On the feet, I do believe Cameron Smotherman will be winning minutes. He is a longer fighter and more technical. And when it comes to the grappling, I do have concerns on the takedown defense on Smotherman, but he seems to get up for the most part. And it would be smart for Gregorio to mix in takedowns, and there's definitely a path for him to win that way. But I'm not really all that confident that he has that much success doing it. And that's not really how you go out there and get a contract is going and like trying to take someone down for 15 minutes, especially if that's not his A game, which it's not. And I expect him to strike with some other men here. And in a 15-minute kickboxing fight, you have to favor Smotherman to win minutes, maybe even knock him out and win the fight. And then as for a bet, we see Smotherman sitting as a minus 166 favorite. I'm not interested in betting that just because it's not that wide in skill discrepancy on the feet, and there definitely is a path with the takedowns of Gregorio. And then we look at the props. The KO and decision prop for Smotherman are both plus 200. I'm not sure I have a read for him which one of those he wins, so I'm just going to pass. And then in the over-unders, I do expect this fight to go to decision if I'm being completely honest, but there's high variance in these fights and definitely alive for a finish on either side. So I see the over 1.5 sitting at minus 245, and that's just too chalky for me. So we're going to move on to the next fight of the night without a bet. And here we got Paulo Renato Jr. going against Ibo Aslan. And what stands out to me with this fight is the business perspective. And from a business perspective, Ibo is the A side. Ibo is a much more polarizing and marketable figure. He stands 6'3", 27, has 10 first-round knockouts, and he's been training all around the world in the highest level places like Tiger Muay Thai, and for this camp he was training at Extreme Couture. But the only concern with this guy is his cardio and his grappling. In the fight versus Turkali, he death gassed in like the second round. Like he got submitted like 2 minutes into the second, and like he was barely able to stand up, like getting off the stool to start the second round. Like he looked good grappling, just using all strength, and then second round rolled around and he was done and got submitted shortly thereafter, which is honestly not a great look. But I don't think Turkali is a bad grappler by any means, and he's certainly not as bad as Paulo Renato Jr. is. Paulo Renato Jr., for being from Brazil, seems like a pure striker, and that's the only thing he's really interested in training. I think he could maybe try to take Ibo Aslan down here, and that would be smart for him, but I'm honestly not all that confident he does, and it's not really his thing. I would give Paulo Renato Jr. still the cardio advantage and probably the durability advantage, but not a lot has been proven on that. Aslan can definitely improve his cardio. And then as for how the fight plays out, I think either Aslan knocks this dude out or pieces him apart for 15 minutes, or Paulo Renato Jr. weathers an early storm. Aslan gasses out completely, and then Paulo finishes him. So I do, but I'd like to think Aslan has been making improvements to his cardio, so I'm not really interested in the unders here. A little too chalky for me. But what I do like is the Aslan money line sitting at minus 135, and I expected that to be much more wide, if I was going to be completely honest. The KO prop sitting at plus 120, and that's unplayable for me, but I'm going to bet Aslan minus 135 money line 0.75 units. So we move on to the next fight of the night. We got Hyder Emil going against Emra Sonmez. I see this fight as a striker versus grappler matchup. Hyder being the striker and Somez being the grappler. Somez has good chain wrestling and is good early, but he does slow down as the fight goes on, and he seems like a good hammer, bad nail type of fighter. And then we've seen him face resistance in the past, and whenever he takes a step up in competition, he loses the fight. And then on the other side, Hyder is a striker who breaks people, and I think he's has good enough takedown defense to at least stand up right away after getting taken down, and is good enough on the mat that he's not going to get submitted early here or put in that terrible positions. And as for an athlete side, I believe he is the stronger guy is Hyder, and he's a much better athlete than Somez. But Hyder is 2 years older than Somez at 33, while Somez is 31, which could be concerning, but I'm honestly not that worried. And I think Hyder's very live to knock out Sonez here as he slows down later. And as for a submission, I think that's an interesting look here because he is training at with out in California with the Diaz brothers, who have a very good guillotine. So, and I expect Sonez to be tired, putting his head in bad spots here as the fight goes on for a potential Hyder. Just grab the neck quick and it'll all be over with a guillotine. And we look at the odds here and we see Emil as a minus 218 favorite, and that's a little wider than I expected, but I think he does win in this fight. It's also important to note that Somez did miss weight by I think it was like a pound and a half or 2 pounds or something like that, so that wasn't a good look. His motivation could be very likely gone because it's very difficult to get a contract after you miss weight like that. I know Dana doesn't like it. And then another interesting outlook for this fight would be the live bet of this fight, because I think Sonez will have success round one, potentially be the favorite going into round two, but I believe Hyder will be able to take over in the second round. So I'd be looking to place money on Hyder after the first round and live bet him. And then sub prop saying plus 900. Interesting. Already mentioned that. I'm not going to play it personally, but definitely worth a shot. And then the KO saying at plus 200 is too chalky for me as well, since Somez has only been knocked out once and it was due to an injury. So I don't think this guy has terrible durability, but he hasn't really fought anyone either. And then I do see the inside the distance prop sitting at minus 115. And I like that a little more. Still a little chalky, but I'm going to have half a unit on it. Just because of how confident I am in Hyder. And I think he does finish Somez, honestly. And then we have the first women's fight of the year on the Contender Series. Eduarda Mora versus Janina Silva. And for a side perspective, I think Mora is the rightful favorite because of how much bigger she is than Silva. But This is an advice video, and I have to tell you some advice here. You should probably go shoot dice in the alley with your money before you go and bet on this fight. So with that said, I'm going to be moving up to our main event of the evening, Abdul Karim Al-Sawade going against George Hardwick. This is an extremely high-level fight, and I believe both fighters could be in the UFC right now without going through Contender Series, so especially with how much hype George Hardwick has had on him, and the UFC could be trying to push him, but this Al-Sawade guy is no joke. Like I mentioned before, George Hardwick has a lot of hype around this guy. I see this guy all over social media. He's 26 years old, Cage Warriors champ. But Abdul Karim is a very good fighter. Nonetheless, he is the Fury FC champion in his own right. So both these guys have 5-round experience. We have not seen George Hardwick go into round 4 and 5, but Abdul Karim Al-Sawade has gone into the 5th round and got a finish in the 5th round in his last fight, so that's good to see for his cardio, especially for how explosive this guy is. But the big concern that stands out in this fight on either side, just looking at it in general, is that Abdul Karim has been knocked out 3 times in his career. In 2019, he took 2 back-to-back knockout losses, and then he took a 2-year break and moved to Fortis MMA. And since then, he has looked good. Hasn't been knocked out since, which is good to see in 4 fights on American promotions for UFC champ. So he's fighting good guys. And when we look at the stylistics, Al-Sawade is someone who really pushes a pace and is extremely explosive. He can use his strength to get takedowns, but the majority of his fights take place on the feet. And as for Hardwick, I think this guy's a very cerebral fighter. He's good everywhere, primarily a striker and Muay Thai guy, but he's dangerous guillotine, good takedown defense, solid jiu-jitsu, everything. And so, as for a pick, I'm going with George Hardwick as a pick just because of the concerns of Al-Sawade with his chin, as someone with going as Hardwick here who has been putting guys out. I think he's on a 4 or 5 fight finish streak. He's finishing a lot of dudes. Very smart guy. He seems to take his time and pick reads. So I'm not sure on like a time of when he finished him, but the most likely outcome for this fight is a Hardwick knockout. But I think, as for a betting perspective, this fight's going to play out a lot closer than the line indicates, sitting at minus 395 for Hardwick or plus 310 for Al-Sawade. At those prices, I'm going to play 0.5 on the Al-Sawade money line. Like from the prop market, I see Hardwick saying as minus 115 for KO. That's just way too wide for me because I personally don't see Al-Sawade just getting flatlined here. Could happen, but it's not what I see happening. I see Hardwick winning a decision or maybe even getting a late finish, kind of catching him, but just don't see him walking out there and flatlining him. And then, so I looked at the overs. You see the over 1.5 sitting at minus 120. I'm going to put 1 unit on that because, like I said before, Hardwick's not really a go out there and start you type of guy. He's a cerebral fighter, picks his spot, breaks you down. And that's going to do it for How to Bet Dana White's Contender Series Week 2. To go over the bets real quick, I have 0.75 units on Ibo Aslan's money line, sitting at minus 135. I have 0.5 units on Hyder Emil to win inside the distance. And I have 0.5 units on Al-Sawade's money line sitting at plus 310. And I have 1 unit on the over 1.5 in the Al Swadi versus George Hardwick fight, sitting at minus 120. 1 unit.